Welcome back to the counter. For those of you that follow me, you'll know that my videos are a bit few and far between, and a lot of that has to do with the sheer volume of people with resin pour videos out there. And so what I like to do is actually show you something that's a little bit different. Now, what I've got in front of me here is some of the things that I've been working on. And this video will be about doing a background. Now, I'm not a fan of multiple layers because my brain doesn't quite think about depth that way. I try and get depth using colours in a complex, simple pour. But what I have discovered I really find attractive is something that I call a distressed look. And this is taking the concept of just doing it on the background. So what I've got here is three colours, a white, the mint and a clear, over the top of a mistake of one of these. Now what this serves to do is this gives me depth in a background without me having to concern myself with depth in a pour, like in a multiple pour. So this becomes just my background and I can do whatever I like on top without having to worry about a solid block white background. So I'll bring you down and have a look at these, but basically this dark bit is over the top of a mistake of one of these. The white covers beautifully and gives me the lacing. The mint gives it that wispy, softer look. And the clear, you can just see underneath, is on a previous pour. So this at the moment is 2 layers. But it was a bad pour to start with. So this is a way that I can fix it without just layering black on it. The white covers nicely, the mint covers nicely, and what I'm left with is these textured pours in the middle. This is another one. This one's on a canvas. Again, you can see the pour underneath, only where I've got holes in my white and holes in my clear. So like I said, I'll bring you down for a close look at those, but that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm going to be taking this pour, which was a bit of a chaotic mess, and I'm going to pour a distressed background on there and show you how to do that. This is only got one layer. This was the original layer, and I did this section, which is another distress, directly within the pour. I've taped off my sides and I have a plan. I'll be using 3 colours. Well, actually I'll be using clear, white, and then white with 3 drops of green ink. So, and that's how I get this mint colour. Okay, so let's get organised and bring you back for a pour. Okay, so like I said, the colours I'll be using are just white and then white with a couple of drops of green ink. So the white is Iceland White by Art Tree Creations. It's a lovely deep opaque white. which you can lighten, but I will use it at full strength, and just resin green ink. The resin is a 2-part epoxy resin, which is Envirotex Light. You mix it 1:1, which is 1 part A to 1 part B. I think I'm all organised. I've got spare gloves, I've got wipes, my extractor fan is on, my windows are open. It's not quite the optimum temperature for resin over here in our winter, so I will be warming up my resin in hot water, and that's doing that as we speak. I've got another set that's warming up. The only other tool that I'll be using is a palette knife, and I will use that to actually get my streaks and run the colours over each other. I do want this to be relatively thick and to give a chance for the colours to actually drop through the resin and give you the lacing. So I'll be using about 300 mils worth of resin, and that is with about 40 mils wastage. Now you can do it with about 250, but you'll find a better result if you layer it on just a little bit thicker and let it run. And it's that running that stretches your colours and gives you your lacing. So let's get mixing, and I'll show you how much ink I put in the white. Okay, so I've mixed up my resin. There's a total of 300 here. One is just white, the other is also white, and the clear. Now what I'm going to do is make the mint colour. So I've shaken my ink and I'm going to put in 3 drops. And mix that in. Now that 3 drops is enough to make this beautiful mint colour. Now one of the good things about doing this is that all 3 are using the same resin. One has white added and the other has white and ink added. So all you're dealing with is the density of the colour in this case. So the white will fall into the clear and the mint will fall into the white and the clear because they're all there. Now the other thing too is, because it's winter over here, one of the things that you have to deal with when you warm up your resin is to make sure that your board is approximately the same temperature as your resin. So I've been using a little guide. So my board is 21 degrees and my resin is 28. So I'll just check that again. Yeah, it's 28. So I need to warm my board up, otherwise the resin will go into a bit of cold shock. So I'll use my heat gun. And just warm up my board. Only slightly. Just check that. That's closer. Okay, quick wipe to make sure I haven't introduced any dust with that. And let's pour some resin. Now, this is actually going to sweep across this way. So I want streaks here and a bit over there. So I'm going to pour my clear sideways. So make sure you can see this. So I'm going to zigzag my clear, making some thicker bits over here and over here. I'm going to do the same with my white, and I'm going to cross over into my clear and pour separately. So I'll do a line at the top, come across making sure that some of it goes in and some of it doesn't. Now I'm going to torch that to make sure that there are no bubbles and that the mint has something clear to run over. Now be careful when you're using white, because white shows scorching very easily. So keep it a light torch. And just have a look and make sure that it does work. In fact, you can even move it just a little bit just to make sure. There you go. Now we're going to do the blue across the white, crossing over a bit of the clear. Torch the bubbles. Just clear them out the way. And now we're going to use our palette knife to run over and you can do a bit of adjusting. Okay, now I've got a little bit too much of a block up there and probably just a bit here. Keep your palette knife white, much easier. Okay. Torch the bubbles. Just take that off. Now I'm going to tilt it backwards, forwards and slightly down, and that's just to stop the big solid bands. That's just to give it a bit more freedom. More of a tilt Again, be careful about how much you're torching. Just change my gloves. Now there's a couple of spots that I will need to just play with. This is a little bit too dark, so I'll just break that up. And this just needs a little bit of breaking up as well. Now comes the hard part. This is where you walk away. You have to give the lacing a chance to do its own thing. So another quick torch. A bit messy here. One quick removal of a great big piece of dust. Now remember, this is only a background, so whatever happens to this, you can use it however you want to. So we'll leave it there, we'll let it do its thing. We'll come back in 20 minutes and do another quick torch of the bubbles, and then we'll see what we've got. No, don't touch it, Chris. Okay. See you in a bit. Okay, so it's been 20 minutes and I'm just having a quick look. There's a few spots that need bubbles. You only need to torch if there are bubbles. There is no need to torch if you already have a lovely finish. During that 20 minutes, clean your utensils and clean up just a little bit so that you stay nice and clean. I have a tiny couple of bits of dust. Now the more you mess with this, the more likely you are to introduce dust. So a couple of tips: when you turn on your torch and you turn on your heat gun, face it away from your piece so that any dust caught in the nozzle or around your actual heating device gets blown away from your piece. Now I'm really happy with that. I've run around the outside. I'll bring you down and show you what happens when you just let your resin do what it does well, and the pigments. And this is what we have. Now you can do this with any colours to give yourself background, and some of those tips will actually help you when you use multicolours. But for me, I like this distressed look. I like having something interesting in the background, and some of the pieces where you're still seeing the underneath, you can hide or decide what to do when you pour your actual piece on top. So that's a way of giving yourself a nice background and some interesting depth. I love these pale colours, and I will be using those darker colours on top in the next pour, and I might even video for that for you. Now I mentioned a bit of wastage. It's actually not that much, but we needed the depth of the resin to help the effects work. There's no point scrimping on your resin and losing your opportunity to make the look that you wanted. So now I'm going to cover it and leave it alone until tomorrow. I use these large food covering nets to cover my work, to keep all the dust and debris off my piece. Now obviously a quick tip would be to make sure that your netting is free of dust before you actually put it on there. No point covering your work if your netting's full of dust, so keep your netting in a clean environment as well.